The ocean makes up 99% of our world's biosphere, and yet we humans alone, who factually make up less than 1% of the Earth's biosphere, have managed to impair the health of that 99%. How, you may be wondering? Well, I could state the many things humans do to destroy the ocean's ecosystems, but that would take all day. So I'm going to focus on one: commercial fishing. For this speech, I will be discussing how commercial fishing is devastating the health of our oceans. I'm qualified to speak on this topic due to long-term research into the subject of environmental health. Since I was very young, I've heard talk about our ocean's health declining, and it never sat right with me how everyone around me could care less. They'd all say by the time the ocean was depleted, it wouldn't affect them anymore. However, what they failed to realize was that it will affect them. It will affect their children and their children's children, and so on, until it will be too late to reverse the carelessness of their past mindset. So, after meeting many people who thought like that, I wanted to make a change. Today, I have combined research so I can provide you with insight that shows just how dangerous commercial fishing is. Everyone should know how much damage commercial fishing does to our ocean, because as I stated earlier, that a type of environmental abuse fishing inflicts on our ocean can determine the health of our planet and future generations. Also, being aware of the dangers of commercial fishing will allow you to become aware of how it is mandatory for our governments to stop the abuse being inflicted on the ocean's environment. At the end of my speech, I hope you will agree that government officials should create mandatory laws prohibiting the violent behaviors of these commercial fishing industries. So, to prove my statement to you, I will be providing you with 3 main points. First, I will give you evidence that shows the negative impact of commercial fishing on the environment. And then I will tell you how the violent behaviors of these companies are not only projected onto the wild, but their employees. And finally, I will stress the need for mandatory laws to prohibit the negative behaviors of commercial fishing companies. To begin, research shows commercial fishing negatively affects the ocean's environment in 3 specific ways. First is overfishing, which is defined as the harvesting of wildlife from the sea at rates too high for species to replenish themselves. Commercial fishing often results in overfishing, which, if not stopped, can cause the extinction of certain species and disrupt marine ecosystems. Research from Teresa Yu states that overfishing has led to approximately 90% of the ocean's fish populations being overexploited, fully exploited, or have collapsed entirely. Overfishing becomes a threat when fish populations can't regenerate themselves, which leads to the disruption in the ocean's food chain. Research shows many big fish populations have declined due to overfishing. Overfishing leads to commercial fleets traveling deeper in the ocean and farther down the food chain, overall disrupting the biological system on their way. With that being said, ecosystems such as coral reefs have begun to decline due to the overfishing of herbivorous fish species that keep the coral clean and healthy. The second way commercial fishing negatively affects the ocean is through habitat destruction. The main cause of habitat destruction is caused by many types of trawls, dredges, and traps that are dragged over or sit on the sea floor. Research states that during trawling, all of the bottom-dwelling plants and animals are affected, if not outright destroyed, by tearing up root systems or animal burrows. This can lead to devastated ocean habitats and disruption in the sediments of the seafloor. Dredges usually disturb the top 2 to 6 centimeters of sediment, while the doors that hold open trawls in the water can plow furrows from 0.2 to 2 meters wide and up to 30 centimeters deep in the sediment. This disruption can destroy or upset nutrients within the sediment, causing nutrient imbalances that can further affect how those areas recover. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration states, bycatch refers to discarded catch of marine species and unobserved mortality due to a direct encounter with fishing vessels in gear. The species that are susceptible to being bycatch are anywhere from unwanted fish to other animals such as dolphins, whales, sea turtles, and seabirds that become hooked or entangled in fishing gear. The reason why bycatch is a major threat to the ecosystem is that most animals who fall victim to it have high rates of mortality. Research shows, although many fish are dead prior to discarding, others are discarded alive, some of which will die after release. With such a high chance of mortality due to bycatch being exposed to air, injuries such as severe crushing injuries, exhaustion, which can cause extreme psychological trauma and affect the animal's further ability to reproduce, and borrowed trauma, which occurs with sudden changes in the pressure while fish are being reeled into the boats. Many fish populations are in danger of depleting due to commercial fishing, catch, and release techniques. Now, the commercial fishing industry does more than just abuse and threaten the environment they fish in. They threaten the well-being of humans. Commercial fisheries have been linked to carelessness with the safety of their workers. Research states the deck of a modern fishing vessel is a pitching, slippery surface with many winches, lines, booms, and pulleys, all with their hazards of injury. A review from the CDC found that data from 2000 to 2017 found that 791 commercial fishermen died while fishing in the United States. Nearly half of these fatalities, or 48%, also 381, occurred after vessel disaster. 30%, or 237, occurred after fishermen fell overboard, and 13%, or 102, occurred as a result from injuries sustained on board, while the remaining 9%, or 71 fatalities, occurred while diving or on shore. So far, the research I have given you proves that commercial fishing companies not only don't care about the environment they fish in, but don't care about the safety of the workers they hire. These companies also exploit their workers' human rights. Research shows many of them migrant workers are vulnerable to severe forms of human rights abuse on board fishing vessels. A few forms of human rights abuse these workers endure are sexual abuse, psychological abuse, and slave labor. Now, I have informed you of how big of a threat commercial fishing is. I would like to tell you why government officials should create mandatory laws to prohibit any further violence. First, mandatory environmental laws on commercial fishing will help reverse the devastation already caused. If the government implements stricter bycatch laws and overfishing laws which prohibit the destruction of our important species, we could see a drastic change in the ocean's food chain and habitat health. Strict laws against trawling, dredges, and traps could stop the destruction of our ocean's substrate and habitats, such as coral reefs, which would promote the population growth of many of our endangered species. And second, and my personal favorite, with government officials creating strict laws against commercial fisheries, we could see massive opportunities open for sustainable small-scale fisheries. Research on local family-owned fishing operations states, small operations tend to deliver both food and income directly to the people who need them the most. And locals have a strong incentive to make their practices sustainable. With government officials turning their support to local fishermen, our country could see a widespread change in the ocean's health without losing our imports of seafood. And third and finally, the government doesn't just need to act upon the damage commercial fishing has inflicted on our oceans for the sake of our environment. They need to act for the people suffering due to commercial fisheries' human rights abuse. With strict laws preventing the violation of safety, slave labor, and sexual abuse, we could stop fishing from being one of the most dangerous occupations in the United States. Overall, I have informed you and given you expansive research on the violence of commercial fishing. So let's review the points I went over. First, I discussed the environmental dangers of commercial fishing. Then I informed you on the lack of safety and human rights abuse these companies inflict on their workers. And finally, I explained why the government needs to implement laws in order to stop the dangerous tendencies of commercial fishing companies so our environment and those who have been exploited can heal. Given my points, I hope that you agree that the government should, in fact, implement mandatory laws prohibiting the violent behaviors of the commercial fishing industry. So, instead of supporting commercial fisheries any longer, whether that is through the restaurants you eat at or the seafood you buy at the market, I say it is time for us as a nation to demand our governments to make a change. We as consumers have the right and power to demand ethical and sustainable fishing practices. So this leads me to say, through signing petitions and reaching out to our local government officials, we can make a change in the fishing industry that will not only protect our ocean's ecosystem, but protect the quality of human life and generations to come.